Hi guys! Finally, this is my favorite part of reading anything at all, is ranking my books or talking about my favorite books. And if you haven't seen it, I have a video where I rank all the books I've read in the summer. And now I'm going to be ranking all the books from worst to best that I read in the fall. So let's do that. Let's go. The worst book I read in the fall was The Wanting Seed by Anthony Burgess. I have a whole separate video on this book. If you want to go, you can watch that video, but I have a whole separate video on why I do not like this book. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here why I don't really like it, but if you want to, you're free to go watch that video. But I suggest we move on to the next book. So the next book was Conversations on Love. This book, well, essentially my sister got this book because she was interested, and then I had nothing to read, so I was like, I'm gonna give this a try, you know? And I did not end up liking this book. I am aware how I am not the target audience for this book. I'm like 15, so I'm so not the target audience for this book. I think this book is way more interesting for people who are in their 30s or 40s. And but what this book is, it's different interviews with different people about love and all kinds of different love. And it was, I personally found some of the chapters a bit dull and a bit repetitive, but also acknowledging the fact that this book is not for me. It was not meant for me. So some people could like it, and I understand, but I really had nothing to relate to in this book, knowing that I, like, first of all, pull no bitches. Second of all, it's like about, some of the chapters about like children and loving your children and miscarriages, and that's not anything I can relate to. So obviously this really wasn't the book for me. It's quite low on the list, but it wasn't a bad book overall, you know? I feel like there aren't any books that I was like, there was like only one book in here which I'm like actually like really don't like. The rest were like fine, and then there was of course the ones I loved. The Atlas 6. So I got this book because literally from everywhere, from like TikTok, YouTube, everyone was telling me. Also, this book is like right behind me. Let me pull it out of my ass. So this book right here, everyone was telling me how this book is like so dark academia, and I plead guilty. I am a dark academia stan. If you say something has dark academia in it, or if it's like a tiny bit dark academia, I'm like, take my money. Take my money. However, this book had no plot. No plot. You see all of these pages? No plot. Not a single, no. It's all about the characters and kind of their relationship with each other. And it's like, there's a lot of drama, but I expected a bit more like plot development, you know? Like, that's kind of more what I wanted. And I didn't get that because I'd read the other Olivia Blake book. And that book was so good. I absolutely loved that book. So this was kind of disappointing. Like, it was a bit disappointing, I think, you know? So yeah, I didn't really enjoy this one, but it wasn't bad. Like, at some points I was quite entertained, but then it was just like, this is my problem with like books that have many characters and their like point of views. Some of them are like super interesting, and some of the other ones are like kind of mid. And I didn't really connect with any of the characters, which also made it harder to read, especially when there is no plot. When there is no plot and you don't connect with the characters, it's like, I don't care. It's like, whatever happens to them, like, I do not care. Like, I do not care what you do. I do not care what you say. I literally could not care less. That's how I felt about this occasionally. But it was quite entertaining. I haven't read the second part, but maybe it's like way better. Tell me if it is. Maybe I need to go and buy it. Maybe I'll love that one. I don't know. Next book is A Rumor Once Owned Virginia Woolf. This is the first Virginia Woolf book I have ever read. Never read any other books. I really want to though, and I have a few more of them, but this is the first one I happen to read. I have kind of conflicted feelings about it because on one hand, it's like very important essays about feminism and women's rights and just women's lives in the beginning of the 20th century. But on the other hand, all of them are kind of written from this white middle class point of view, which is essentially what Virginia Woolf was, because she was the middle class. Like, she was she was not poor, guys. She had money. That's why she wrote all those books. So it was kind of from that point of view, and it was very slow paced. Like, you know, it's like it has very tiny, like at least my copy, I mean, it has very tiny letters, and it was kind of slow paced, and I was like, yeah, I feel kind of conflicted about this one. I liked some parts in it. There's the very famous example how she compares Shakespeare to his imaginary made-up sister, and how if she would have the same set of abilities and the same talent, she would not be as famous and as well known because women just weren't recognized. That was interesting, but then the rest was kind of like, it's like, yeah, very conflicted feelings about this one. I mean, it wasn't bad, and it's definitely important in literature, and I feel like if you want to start reading more books about feminism, this could be like a good place to start, but you should definitely read more modern ones, and books with more different POVs, kind of, you know? Let me just shove you right into here. Yep, it can sit there. Then, next on my ranking, we have Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. And this book, first of all, if you want to hear my other thoughts on this book and just some other books I had bought, I did a video on all the books I bought in Dublin, so that book is there. You can go look at that. And this book, it's a YA novel, and very sweet, very cute. I enjoyed it. I liked it. It was a very fun read. I would say that at some points the language felt kind of repetitive. There was this one thing I remember. The author used the words dull ache. I was like, ooh, that's cool, you know, dull ache. That sounds like a really good description of like feelings. And then the author proceeded to repeat it like 3 more times in the book. I'm not joking. So it was a bit repetitive. However, if we're just ranking the plot, then I really liked it. Really good trans representation. And I would definitely recommend this to like younger teenagers because it was kind of childish at some parts, but I honestly don't care because I feel like there is so much sadness in LGBTQ media, which is like, I mean, I love reading, don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan for sad books. Sometimes I need to read a happy book, which doesn't make me feel like crying, and that's okay. And I feel like there should be both. There should be both the harsh, sad life stories, but also the fun ones, because it's like, you know, we need them, especially in like YA books, because young kids need to read happy books, you know? I think there's a really big importance of having good representation, but also both in a way that it's like realistic, but also not depressing and sad, because most of the time when we hear stories about LGBTQ people in the media, it's stories about bullying, about shame, and I want to have stories about queer joy. Like, that's why I think Heartstopper is so important. That's why I love Alice Oseman books, because all of them have so much queer joy, and yes, they also have homophobia in them, because that's what every queer person deals with, but I like how it's a balance of having both queer joy and how it exists, you know, because a lot of queer people feel very fucking sad in the world that we live in right now. So let's read happy books. Like, where are they? Where are my happy books when I need them, when I want them? Okay, let's move on to the next book. When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill. I found this book to be very cool. It's set in 1950s America, where one day thousands of women transform into dragons. I know, right? I know, amazing. I found it to be very captivating. I couldn't put it down. And it touches upon feminism and societal norms and how society really struggles to accept complicated concepts. So I think this is a very nice book, and it's not like a hard read, you know, it's like an easy read, and the characters are also very, you know, they're likable. Like, you like the characters. You know what I mean? I think you know what I mean. Moving on to the next book. However, I actually need to quickly check how this book is called in English because I read it in Latvian. Give me a second. What is going on? Why can't I find how this book is called in English? Hello, Goodreads? Please? Please? The Housemaid. The Housemaid. This book. The Housemaid. This book was a present on my birthday from my aunt. And honestly, when I got it, I didn't know how to feel about it yet because it's really not the type of book I would usually read, you know? It kind of gave me like mom vibes, especially because it was in Latvian and the cover was kind of giving like something your mom would read on like a vacation. And I was like, okay, I don't know how I feel about this. Never judge a book by its cover, guys. Don't, never do that. Because this book was fire. It was amazing. It's really not, I was so shocked. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. I was literally telling my friend the whole plot of this book when I was reading it because I was so interested. Like, listen, you have to know what happened. There was a plot twist. It's about a woman who starts working as a maid in this rich family's house. And it's all about dark secrets, like drama and female rage. It's a psychological thriller, and I literally could not recommend this enough. I loved it so much. I was so entertained. I read it in like 3 days. I never read thrillers. I very rarely read thrillers. That's not really a genre I seem to enjoy a lot because very often I don't feel very thrilled when I read thrillers. You know, I'm not very excited. Like, but this book, it's different. It's different. It's not like most girls. It's actually so good, like, genuinely. Please, even if you don't read psychological thrillers, like, actually read this. I don't know, like, I think it's like pretty famous now because I keep seeing it in bookstores, so I bet you've like heard of it already. I just hadn't. Open Water is fascinating, completely and utterly fascinating. It's written using second person perspective. Is that how you call it in English? I'm not sure, but that was the first time I read a book like that, it was a bit strange at first, but then I got used to it. It's essentially a love story about two black British artists and how love can pull people together and then tear them apart. And it has themes of race, love, masculinity. It's very short, so it's kind of a quick read, but it's so artistic. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just so like I love this book. Also, I was looking at Goodreads reviews. I was looking at the bad reviews, to be more precise, and most of them said that they didn't like this book because they couldn't get into the language of it. I can't relate to that because I absolutely loved this, like, the writing and the language. I absolutely loved it. I understand why some people might not. So if you don't really like very embellished, artistic kind of writing, then maybe this is not for you, but I do, so. The Hate You Give is a book I had heard a lot about, a lot on the media, and I'm extremely glad that I took it out from my school's library and read it because I ended up completely loving it. It tells the story of Star, a 16-year-old girl who sees her childhood best friend get killed by a police officer. It's a very important story to tell, and it is very, very compelling characters. I love how this book balances the seriousness of the situation and the dark parts of it with the lighthearted, funny moments of like hanging out with your friends, because that's what life is like for the protagonist, you know? She goes to this kind of like preppy, posh school, but she also lives in a very poor neighborhood. So it really balances it out, and it's like kind of fascinating, you know? I found this book very hilarious at some points, and I would be just laughing out loud, and at the other points, my jaw would be on the ground, and I'd be like, what do you mean? Like, what? And I love that in a book, and I do think everyone should read this book. A Thousand Splendid Suns. I had been wanting to read this book for years. We've had it at home for years. Basically, everyone in my whole family has read this book. Both The Kite Runner and A Thousand Splendid Suns are written with this riveting language and intensity that when you start them, you can't put them down. I feel like I really got a lot of deep insight about the lives of Afghan women over the decades because the book is written like a long period of time, and how they were given rights and then stripped from rights, and just about like how female bodies are controlled and treatment of women and abuse. Reading this made me really start thinking about how I don't know all that much about the history of Afghanistan and how I probably should learn more because it's not something you learn in school, really. I mean, like, genuinely, you've never learned anything about the history of Afghanistan in school. I love books that I can read and actually feel like I'm learning something or like finding out new information that I had never known before. It's like so fun. Then reading feels way more valuable because you're like actually learning something and gathering new knowledge. So I love that. The Portrait of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. So I had been saving this one. This is, by the way, the top 3 book. We're at the top 3 right now. So this is the 3rd book. I knew I would like this book and I was really waiting for the right moment. And when we went on our trip to Ireland, I was like, this is the moment. This is the moment because he's Irish. He went to the Trinity College of Dublin. He has a statue there. And I took a picture with it with my book. I absolutely love how this book was written. I mean, I knew that I will, but like I did anyways. I really think it's one of the best like written books, just how the language is in a book. And Oscar Wilde paints the images in books so vividly that you genuinely feel like you see what's going on right in front of your eyes. Just like you see exactly how like a character sat down in like a chair and how he like moved his arms, or at least that's how I felt. Book number 2, and that book is Foster by Claire Keegan. I love Foster. I absolutely adore the talent of a writer to say so much by saying so little at all. You have to be so clever when you're writing a short story or a short book with your choice of words because they kind of have to be perfect in a way, and that's what this book is. Like, I feel like every single word in this book kind of means something more, and it's so short, but it's just like like it's a very short book, but it's absolutely worth it. It's about the girl living in rural Ireland with her foster parents and how they slowly start to love each other more and how she slowly starts to like feel more confident in their presence, and it's just like so great. Fascinating. And it's like so short. Like, it's actually, I think this is the shortest book I ever read. It's 88 pages. What? And like, look, half of the page is like literally nothing. Like, oh my god. The time has come for the best book I read in fall. And that book is Babel. Oh my god. I absolutely love this book. It's not funny, not even funny, not joking. I love this book so much. So much. When I started reading this book, it was just like this feeling of like, it's amazing. I can't explain it. It's like, when you like read the first chapter in a book and you're like, this will be absolutely fire. This will be amazing. It's not one of the easiest reads, I'd say, because it's very long. It's like 500 pages or something. It's set in like 1830s British Empire, which runs on magical silver bars. I know, sounds a bit confusing, but it's okay, you'll understand. And it tells a story about Robin Swift, an orphan from Canton, who gets adopted by an Oxford professor, Richard Lowell. He is raised in Richard Lowell's house to become a student in Babel, in the Institute of Translation, and he's going to be a translator, which this book, actually, I'm not going to tell you anything more about it. I'm not, because I love this book so much, and you don't need to know anything else. It's amazing. That's all you need to know. It's actually insanely good. I'm like genuinely not going to tell you more. I'm going to tell you that book is about racism and translation. That's all I'm going to say. Also, this book made me appreciate translators so much more. I had never thought about translators, like just about like the people who translate our books. they're basically writing a whole book. Like, they have the story told, you know, but they're finding the right words to use to write the book. And it's absolutely crazy to me. And shortly after finishing this book, I had this speech I had written in Latvian, and I needed to translate it to English, which was the worst experience of my entire life. I don't think I could ever be a translator. I don't know how translators do it, because just translating that one small speech took like all of my efforts. It was like all of my effort. And it was also so, like, I hated doing it. I absolutely hated doing it because I love the speech in Latvian. I feel like the fact that it was in Latvian gave it so much character. And then just taking it and turning it into English, because words have associations, and when we translate them, they don't have them anymore. And that's just kind of stripes the whole thing of meaning. And honestly, I think that made the speech be like shit, but I needed it for like a school assignment. I needed to translate it because I love the speech in Latvian. I had written it in Latvian, and I had to translate it, and I was like, no. Like, translating things out of a language, first of all, insanely hard, because to translate certain meanings and certain metaphors in different languages is insanely complicated. Like, try translating poems and lyrics. It's so hard. How the fuck do translators do it? How do they do it? I don't understand. Like, before reading this book, I had never thought of it. I had never considered. This changed my life. Also, the writing in Babel. How? It's not overly complicated, you know? Sometimes you read a book and you're like, I don't know what half of these words mean. I know these words, it's just the way there's something about the way that it was written that completely shocks me, and I can't do this. I don't. Oh my god. Okay, I'll stop. I think that's enough of me talking about Babel to you. So thank you for watching this video. Thank you for being here. Hopefully I will make some more videos soon. I don't know when will that happen, but you know, we can just dream. We can dream. But yeah, thank you for being here. See you some other time. Bye.